Welcome to The Explainer, where we take complex topics and transform them into clear, engaging, visual stories. For over 2,000 years, there's one name that just instantly brings up these images of beauty, power, and, of course, tragedy. And that name is Cleopatra. She was the last active pharaoh of ancient Egypt. She's so iconic that fact and fiction have just completely blurred together. So the big question is, how much of what we think we know is actually true, and how much of it is just a story, a myth, cooked up by the very people who defeated her? All right, let's really get into it. So where do we even start? Well, our investigation has to begin with the most basic question: her identity. We all have this picture in our minds of the ultimate Egyptian queen, right? But was she? The real story is so much more complex and, honestly, way more interesting. Okay, so the very first clue we have completely shatters one of the biggest myths about her. Cleopatra was not ethnically Egyptian, not at all. She was actually the last ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, and this was a long line of Macedonian Greek rulers descended from one of Alexander the Great's own top generals. But here's what makes her so different. She completely broke from 300 years of her family's tradition. See, her ancestors, they all stayed culturally Greek, but Cleopatra, she dove headfirst into the culture of the people she was actually ruling. She took the time to learn their language, their religion, their customs, and she presented herself not as some foreign ruler, but as a true pharaoh of Egypt. And let's be clear, this was an absolutely masterful political move. But it was more than that. It created this really complex, layered identity for her. It's what made her so formidable and so beloved by her own people. And it's why she's such a huge figure in African history, no matter what her ancestry was. So that complex identity, that was the real key to her power. But her enemies, especially the Romans, they worked overtime to paint a totally different picture, right? They wanted everyone to see her as this decadent seductress. The thing is, the actual historical evidence shows that her real power came from something else entirely. It was her mind. Her mind was, without a doubt, her greatest asset. She was a brilliant polyglot. That means she spoke multiple languages. We're talking reportedly fluent in at least 9 of them. Now, back then, in an age of sprawling empires, that was basically a superpower. Think about it. She could negotiate directly with kings and generals, build those personal connections, and totally outmaneuver her rivals, all without ever needing someone to translate for her. And you know what? Her skill with languages was really just the tip of the iceberg. She wasn't just a ruler, she was a genuine scholar. Her education was absolutely staggering. We're talking advanced studies in all these different fields: math, medicine, economics, you name it. This made her hands down one of the most educated leaders of her time, period. Man or woman. Take her study of chemistry, for example. It wasn't just some academic hobby. She really understood the power of sense. She actually owned her own perfume factory and used that chemical knowledge to create these unique fragrances. And they weren't just for beauty. She used them as powerful tools for diplomacy and even personal branding. So clever. And this mix of sharp wit and scientific know-how comes together perfectly in this one legendary story. There was this famous bet she had with Mark Antony. To win, she took a ridiculously expensive pearl, dissolved it in a cup of vinegar, and then just drank it. She won the bet, and in doing so, proved that both her wealth and her intellect were just on another level. But you have to understand, that incredible intellect was matched by a really brutal sense of pragmatism. The world she lived in, Ptolemaic politics, it was a total snake pit, just full of betrayal. So to secure her throne, and frankly, just to survive, she had to be absolutely ruthless. It's even believed she orchestrated the deaths of her own siblings when they challenged her for the throne. So her life was just incredible. But it's her death in 30 BCE that became the final and maybe the most lasting piece of this whole puzzle. And it's a piece that was intentionally clouded by Roman storytellers. Okay, so the story we all know, right? She died from the bite of an asp, a slake, that was smuggled to her in a basket of figs. But here's the thing. The Roman accounts, which were written way after she died, are full of conflicting details and just a lot of speculation. The historian Cassius Dio, for instance, he noted that the only signs on her body were just a few slight marks on her arm. That famous story about the snake, it's really just one of several competing theories from the ancient writers. Some thought it was a poisonous ointment. Others suggested maybe a pin dipped in poison that she hid in her hair. And every single one of these theories raises more questions than it answers. In fact, a lot of historians today really doubt that a large cobra could have been smuggled past Roman guards in the first place. So here's the crucial point, and it's something we always have to remember. History is usually written by the winners. The Romans, her conquerors, they needed a dramatic, almost theatrical ending for their greatest female enemy. This story of an exotic serpent from a foreign land, it served their political agenda perfectly. It painted her as this strange, dangerous foreign threat who was ultimately defeated and driven to a desperate, dramatic end. Which leads us to the final mystery. For more than 2,000 years, the actual final resting place of Cleopatra and Mark Antony has remained one of history's greatest lost treasures. It's a mystery that has absolutely captivated explorers for centuries. And believe it or not, that search is more active right now than ever before. There's an archaeologist, Kathleen Martinez, who has dedicated her entire life to solving this mystery, and she believes she is closer than anyone has ever been to finding it. What's fueling all this excitement is a series of really stunning discoveries at a site called Taposiris Magna, which is just west of Alexandria. It's really reignited hope. In 2022, they found this massive rock-cut tunnel, we're talking 1,300 meters long. And nearby, a sunken port was discovered, just filled with artifacts from Cleopatra's time. Martinez has this theory that this tunnel could be the exact path they used to secretly transport the queen's body to her hidden tomb. So you have this investigation that now stretches across millennia. It's directly linking the dramatic last days of the ancient world to the absolute cutting edge of modern archaeology. It's like a direct thread connecting our world right now straight back to hers. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? If Kathleen Martinez, or some other archaeologist, finally uncovers that tomb, what story is it going to tell? What new truths could possibly emerge from the darkness after 2,000 years? And will it be enough to finally and truly separate the woman from the legend?